Hello and welcome to Going to College, a special educational podcast brought to you in association with QQI. My name is Rob O'Hanrahan, and in this two-part series we'll be taking you through the Leaving Cert results of 2024, the trends, the issues, and most importantly, what happens next, including getting you ready for college life. I'm delighted to be joined today by Pádraig Walsh, CEO of QQI, and Aoife McArdle, Guidance Counsellor at the Institute of Education in Dublin. The main word that I think everyone is talking about at the moment, inflation once again. To coin a phrase I saw in the Indo last week when the results came out. This is a problem that we've been dealing with for the last few years, and it's one that we're probably going to be dealing with going into the future. We had almost 61,000 students who got their Leaving Cert results. We saw, I think, on average, 68% of students saw their grades positively marked upwards as a result of the Education Minister's decision this year to continue that. If this is a problem that's going to take a long time to unravel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I think somebody has to make a brave decision at some point, and someone is going to be disadvantaged, whether it's the students from last year or from next year. But yeah, again, we did see this year that the students had a positive mark adjustment in BMA, on average apparently of 7.5%. So it's a lot. It is a lot, and but another bumper crop of results this year, and lots of celebrations and really a lot of high results. So students were delighted, but yeah, at some point it's going to have to end, I guess. It has ended in the north of Ireland and all over the UK. They're on their own now. It's back to normal. So at some point, somebody's going to have to make a brave decision, and we're going to have to start a process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at that high end, we're really seeing a Pádraig as well. I think we were up at somewhere over 14.3%. I think we were of grades this year. We're H1, slightly down on last year, but it's still double, almost treble what we were seeing pre-COVID. We're really seeing it at the high achiever end of the table.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the challenge, is that particularly when you're looking at courses that will have cut-off points potentially of 625, where someone can literally score a perfect Leaving Cert and doesn't get the course that they chose, which happened last year for a very small number of people. That's obviously, that is a difficulty. I suppose we have to think, though, the impacts of COVID for 20 and 21 affected the cohort doing this, particular Leaving Cert. So you have to go back a long way to find people who had, where there was no impact on their schooling. So I suppose, this group hadn't set a junior cert, for instance. So this was their first set of formal state exams. But if you're going back to normal, you have to decide what normal was. And we're talking about going back to 2019 at that stage. As Aoife said, those adjustments have been made in the UK. They did them at various stages in different parts. England did it faster than Wales or Northern Ireland did, but they are now back, whereby the percentage of A or A stars in A levels are the same as they were as 2019. Now, the minister's committed to that adjustment down, or what they call in the UK the glide path, rather than going on glide path. That's the actual term that they used for it. But the reason why the positive mark adjustment is there is not to disadvantage students from previous years who are applying, but that will always have an impact on the group that are applying the next year. So at some stage, and the commitment is there, this will have to be done.
A glide path is an interesting phrase. Another one that we've heard from the current minister is that there won't be a cliff edge, that this will be a gradual process, which is what we've seen, I think, in some other countries who have undertaken a similar process. But even without it being a cliff edge, with it being a gradual process, this is likely and possible to be a problem for a future Minister for Education with the way the election is expected to go. So I suppose this is going to be something that's going to take a number of years to unravel, and will probably somewhat disadvantage students for the next few years.
Absolutely, because students with this inflated Leaving Cert, there's nothing to stop them applying in future years when the gradual decrease happens. So yeah, somebody is going to be impacted.
And I suppose internationally as well, because this has obviously been going on now for 4 or 5 years, but if we are slightly behind the trend, does that mean that students applying from the north, students applying from Great Britain, students applying even with a back qualification, are they at a significant disadvantage now coming into the CAO system?
I mean, there's also students applying with a QQI FET award, where the maximum score has been 390, and that hasn't changed. Right. And that was competitive for some programs, particularly in the institute technology or technological university sector. But there was they were not rescaled up. So those students have been at a disadvantage for the last number of years.
Okay.
It's something that the FE colleges have complained about.
I can only imagine, yeah, absolutely. And I think then when you see that as well with for example, the random selection that Pádraig mentions, Aoife, I'm sure you guys would have seen that last year as well to an extent, where students who hit that perfect score, who hit 625, who do everything right and beyond, are just the unfortunate few who miss out on random selection. For anyone who doesn't know, random selection is exactly what it says in the tin, right?
Exactly random. It's a computer, so there's no distinction between somebody with 8 H1s and 6 H1s. 625 is the max you can score, and you're put into a pot.
Wow, yeah, it must be like a very, very difficult after the high, I suppose, when you see all the joyous scenes last Friday, and then maybe what you maybe would expect to see then when the kind of the CAA offers come out.
Very difficult.
Yeah. Two separate processes. I think people always kind of forget that they're independent of each other. Yeah,
and two completely different organisations.
When we talk about CAO, so round one offers aren't the be all and end all, but we'll get on to that in a second. Looking specifically at round one offers. If you get your round one offer, your first choice comes in, what does that mean? What do you have to do? Is it done and dusted? Do you rock up then to your college of your choice, or what happens?
Well, you just need to accept it.
Okay.
So that's really important. But even if you don't get your first choice, I would always recommend accepting it, because 98% of places are filled in round one. So while some people will go up and get a higher preference choice in round two or subsequent rounds, it's not a given. And so I would always recommend accepting that first round offer to buy yourself a bit more time and consider all the different options. And there are lots of other options as well.
Accepting your first round offer doesn't preclude you from getting a further offer that's higher up, right?
Exactly.
But am I right in thinking that it does knock out everything below it?
Exactly, yeah. So if you're, you obviously, the words on every guidance counsellor's tombstone are in genuine order of preference. So you fill out your CAO in genuine order of preference. And for example, if you get offered your fourth choice, everything below that, so 5 and below, is gone. You'll never see it again. But you might get offered your first, second or third preference in a subsequent round.
Okay. Is that an issue that people find sometimes, that maybe that process, that idea of always accepting your first round offer but knowing that it will knock your offers out below, but will keep it open for you going forward? Is that an issue that you guys have found, that people maybe and students aren't always aware of how that process works?
I think if they talk to their guidance counsellors, their teachers, they let them know that.
If they listen as well, it's probably the big one. Yeah,
I think the difficulty often is just what Aoife said there, to get people to put it in order of choice. What people try and do is guess the points and then put those in rank order. But points move around. They may not move around enormously for certain courses, but you don't know. It's purely a supply and demand system. So guessing points and saying, well, I put the one that I think will have the highest points first, is not necessarily the best thing, because you don't know that. Genuinely, I mean, I think that's really good advice. Don't put down something you don't want to do, and put them down in the order that if I'm offered that, I'll take it. If I don't get that, I'll take it, etc. I think that's the best advice you can give to people. Even
with the CAO process rumbling on, it kind of, as we go forward in the next few weeks, there is also the separate Leaving Cert appeals process, Aoife, and I wanted to touch on that a tiny bit. It's a very tight window. If someone believes they have gotten an unfair grade for the exam that they sat, it's a very tight window to get that sorted for themselves.
It's a really tight window. So students got their results on Friday, and then on Tuesday they were able to see their individual marks, and then they were able to apply to view their scripts. And now they can, on Saturday, apply, Sunday, 10 a.m. on Sunday until 5 p.m. on Monday, they can apply to appeal. So to appeal, they should have really looked at their paper so that they know what they're appealing. Because from my experience, it's better to put in specific information. So like, you didn't add this correctly, or I had said this. So, sometimes they're looking for a specific word and a student might have used a synonym or something like that. So to to put in exactly why you think you were unfairly marked. So they have that tight window, but it's €40 per script for the Leaving Cert and $15.50 for the Leaving Cert Applied, and you get that money back if you're successful in your appeal. So you wouldn't willy-nilly just have everything rechecked for the sake of it. You know, you'd really want to have a good basis for why you'd appeal. And then bear in mind that they already have this PMA, and that's not a given that'll stay the same, because the PMA is larger at the bottom end of things than at the top.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So the higher your grade, the smaller your PMA is.
So whatever you may gain in terms of, like, say, a mistake that might have been made in your paper, you might lose then in terms of your PMA as you move up the grades.
Yeah.
Okay. If someone was to receive an upgrade in that grade, then that would then be reflected in their results. And if it was to tip the scales in favour of getting them over the line for their CA offer, what does that mean in a few weeks' time?
Hopefully that they'd get that offer.
Okay.
Now, it can happen if it's a lab-based course, that course might be full, in which case they'd be given an offer for the following year, but they really try not to do that. So generally, you rarely hear of that happening anymore. They generally find you a space.
For people for whom last Friday was not a good day, that the first round offers haven't been good to them and they're concerned about what it's going to mean going forward.
Yeah.
Alternative pathways. Look, I know a year at that age is so long, but there are always alternatives.
There are so many. Like, there's never been a better time. There is just so many different routes to the same destination. So, you know, in our school, we'd have a lot of students who are very ambitious. So some of them maybe didn't get those top courses like dentistry, veterinary medicine. They might be looking at going to Poland now. They might be looking at going to Italy. Maybe if it was the HPAT that let them down, if they have really good Leaving Cert results, Queen's University in Belfast, they might be applying there next year for medicine. It really depends, but there are so many routes. There's then PLCs, so we'd have students who decide to do PLCs, and that's a fantastic route, a really, really successful route into many courses such as the sciences, the businesses, that kind of thing. There's private colleges, there's available places, there's UCAS clearing. There are just so many routes, and I really urge those students to get in touch with their guidance counsellor to discuss the different options. So I have so many appointments with the class of 2024 in these few days, just discussing their options, because there really are so many options.
Yeah, I think there's so much hype around the Leaving Cert, kind of coming up to it, after it and everything, that it is sometimes presented as that be all and end all in a way. And I think for people who maybe weren't too happy with what they got, that's always good to hear, I think, that there are those options available. Yeah,
so many. It's fantastic. It really, there's never been a better time, I think, to do the Leaving Cert and to be following a future path after school.
Well, that's it, an exciting time as well.
Oh, it's such an exciting time. I'm so jealous.
Padraig, can I talk to you then around, speaking of those alternative paths, the kind of the tertiary institutions. Can you talk to me a little bit around that, about what they offer now for students going forward, and kind of what courses they offer, or what kind of pathway they offer for those students?
This was an initiative of the current Taoiseach, when he was previous minister, was involved in establishing the National Tertiary Office, and this is the second year that these particular tertiary degree programmes are on offer. So this is an opportunity to get a degree qualification outside of the CAO system by starting your programme in a further education college and then moving on to a higher education college after that, with the guarantee that once you're in the further education college, once you complete that programme successfully, you have a guaranteed place. So it's not contingent on getting a distinction or getting a particular grade. Those programmes are available throughout the technological university sector in particular. There are programmes in immersive media production, where someone can start by doing 2 years in City of Dublin Education Training Board or Kildare Wicklow, and then finish their degree in IADT Dunleary. There's a new course this year, a Bachelor of Social Work programme between Cork Education Training Board that will allow someone to do a social work degree, tertiary degree in UCC, which is the first of the traditional universities to do that. That might suit someone who doesn't want to move too far from home. So, for instance, you can do nursing, which is still a 5-year program through this route, where you do 1 year in one of the education training boards and then move on to do general nursing somewhere like the Atlantic Technological University. But you can begin that in Mayo Sligo Leitrim ETB, in Donegal ETB. So you could actually attend a program in a further education college close to your home in a small class, and then having completed that part, move on and get your degree program, get the exact same qualification as someone who would have gone through the CAO route. So the last year was the first time that was done. This year there have been an increased number of programs and an increased number of places on that. It wouldn't suit everybody, but it may suit people. And as Eva said, there are many routes to the same achievement of getting a degree, which is what people are looking for in these cases.
It's fantastic how much that's changed, I think, even in the last 10, 15, 20 years. It used to be a very, very straight motorway if you wanted to go to college, and now it's looking more and more like a kind spaghetti junction.
I mean, the other piece for those is that the first part of the programme, which is usually 2 years, in the Education Training Board, there is no fee for those. When people transfer into the higher education, there's the 3,000 or whatever it's gone down to this year. Of course, people can get a SUSI grant for that, but it does make a difference, I think, to people that there's no fee for the first years of those programs, tertiary degree programs in the education and training boards in the further education college.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think it really takes into account that people learn in different ways and people develop at different rates. Some students, reach their potential a bit later than others, and so it really takes into account that it isn't a one-size-fits-all approach.
Absolutely.
Fantastic, yeah.
And I suppose even if someone was to have skipped transition year, for example, like you could be finishing your Leaving Cert at 16, 17, so that extra year could make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for all of your time today. That is all we have time for, unfortunately. My thanks to Pádraig and Eva for their time today. Tune in to the next episode where we'll be taking through the next steps and getting ready for college life in 2024 and beyond.